Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where we get a look behind the book. Today I'm joined by the lovely Dakota Davies. She is the author behind a couple of series, one of which I just found her as I'm a new reader, and that is the Love Me Dangerously series, which currently has 3 books out. I read Love Me Fearless, and that's how I found her, but her new release, which is coming out March 27th, is Love Me Fierce. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So how does it feel about having another book coming out?
It's always awesome because you have another story that you get to share. So I'm definitely really excited.
Yeah. Is it going to be the last one in this series?
No, there'll be 6 total in this series. At least this particular series. I might write more books in the Fin River universe. We'll see.
Okay. Ooh, I'm excited. I love when there's like multiple books and then there's spin-offs from it because it makes it feel more real and you get to see the characters from the other books you like. And so it's like, I just love that. I think that's so great when authors do that.
Yeah, I like it a lot too, and I really love Fin River, so it would be really hard to say goodbye to it. But we'll see. I don't know what
Yeah.
the future holds just yet.
It's a great small town and I love all of the different like interactions with all the people that they live around and the different shops and like you get to see it. So it really feels real. So I really like that. It kind
Thanks.
of reminds
Yeah,
me
I love it too.
of Flagstaff. So I went to college in Flagstaff and it reminds me a lot of there,
Mhm.
in my mind at least. I don't know if you've ever been
Yeah,
there, but it reminds me of that.
I actually have lived in Flagstaff.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, and I worked at a coffee shop there like many, many years ago. And
yeah.
it does have a really nice small town feel there, and it also surprisingly is a lot of mountain culture,
Mhm.
which wouldn't expect for Arizona, but there was a lot of that which I really liked. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And like it was snow there. I went to college up
Hmm.
there. So that's my vibe when I picture the town you created. I'm like, it looks like Flagstaff.
Yeah.
So this might be a good segue into what we were just talking about. If you could live in any of the little towns that you've created in your books, which one would it be and why?
I mean, it would probably be Fin River.
Yeah.
But my town of Penny Creek, which is where I set the Falling Hard series, is really similar. They could be the same place. And they're both based off of a lot of the experiences I've had in small towns and mountains in Idaho. I've spent a lot of my summers in the mountains in Idaho, and so I based both of those small towns off of places that I've been and that I really love. But right now, it would be Fin River, probably because I've built the community to be so welcoming, and I didn't spend as much energy on that in Penny Creek from my Falling Hard books. It was more about the family. So yeah, I'm definitely really loving Fin River.
Yeah. So, which character has been the hardest for you to write? You could use this series or a different one. Was there any that really were like really difficult for you?
Boy, that's a really great question. The hardest, in general, the hardest to write are heroines. They're just I like to write really strong and feisty heroines, and sometimes I write them so independent that not all readers like that. So I've been a learning curve for me to make them more like feminine and soft as well as fierce and brave. I think the hardest character is probably the book that's coming out, Love Me Fierce. I have a kind of a grumpy, broody cop who's been burned so badly by women in his past. So he's just really guarded. He's in charge of solving a pretty important mystery that I have been building up to. That creating him in a way that was likable, but also it has to be really tough and strong and fierce.
Yeah.
And then my heroine for that book as well. She was really hard, coming off of a really horrible relationship, divorced, single mom, kind of secret past that she's trying to, for very good reasons, to keep secret. So they both have this really strong reason not to like each other, not to trust each other. And I normally really like a challenge like that, but this one, it just felt particularly difficult. And it definitely took me a long time to find the right way to build them together so that they were still relatable, and that they had the tools to overcome these really big challenges and them finding their way together. So that's probably the hardest one I've had in a while.
So, from what like I said, I'm newer to you, so I'm reading this series, which has an element of suspense. Is that like your favorite type of books to write, or romances with that side plot of the suspense?
I mean, I really love it. I've done it in two different series, this one and my Wild Heart series, which were set in Alaska. And I'm really was a mystery reader as a kid, and mysteries are something that I still really love. I love true crime. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. I read a lot of books about actual investigations. I really love the nitty gritty that goes into solving a mystery. And I love like the whole process of law enforcement and investigations. So when I first started writing romance, I didn't bring the suspense element into it. I wrote like my Falling Hard series doesn't have any suspense. It has one book that has kind of a thread of suspense, but it was mainly more about the family, the sort of family dynamic. And I love big families too. And that big families and suspense are probably my two favorite things about writing romance, and kind of that found family element. But when I set out to write the Falling Hard, or when I set out to write the Love Me Dangerous series, I really wanted the suspense element to be part of every book. And so I dreamed up kind of a past life for my main character in the first book, that he actually comes out of the Wild Hearts books. He was a teenager in that book and played a small role in the last couple of books. And then he lands himself in Finn River, and there's a mystery behind his reasons for being there. So that was what I really wanted to have happen, is I wanted him to have sort of this past that some readers maybe were familiar with, but that new readers could also pick up the book and start fresh. But I definitely love the suspense and the investigation part of the romance books that I'm right now. I don't know that I'll do it for every series, but it'll definitely be part of this particular series that I'm in right now. It's very satisfying. It's very difficult to bring all of the pieces of a mystery and an investigation alongside a romance that's building between characters. It's a challenge that I love it. It's definitely can be very challenging. And I definitely have gotten into some corners a couple of times in writing when I'm like, oh, I actually can't do that right now. I have to wait, or this piece doesn't fit here, or I'm doing too much with a mystery. I need to back up and spend some more time building the romance. So it's definitely it adds another element of challenge, because I want the reader to be like, I want them to feel really satisfied when they get to the whodunit part of the mystery. That's really important to me. And it takes a very delicate hand to weave all those pieces together in the right way. So yeah, I definitely love it.
So like in the book that I read with Ava and Hutch, or Ryan, his real name, but he goes by Hutch, you like hear these little things and you're like, wait, what was that about? And you're like, why aren't they talking about that? And then it like sits, and then it goes a little forward, and then you hear something else and you're like, wait, why isn't anyone addressing that? Like, that's a weird thing that person said or this person did. And then you get to where it like really starts to be like I was reading, so I read at night when my kids are asleep, and I actually listen to the audiobook. That's how I read. Like, so it was like on a whole other level of like the hairs on the back of your neck rising, and like you're in the dark and you're like, wait, I need to turn a light on, because it just got there. And I really liked it. I think that Laura and Robert did a really good job at bringing that story to life, and the creepy factor of the suspense in that story was so good, and I did not see the ending coming. Like, I was just like, wait, what? So I really liked it.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And we'll definitely have to pass that on to Rob and Laura, because it was such a pleasure to work with them. And they brought such a wonderful amount of energy to the stories. So yeah, I'm glad that you love the audiobook. It's making audiobooks is something that is like one of my best favorite parts about being an author, is to bring audiobooks to people who love them.
Yeah. Is that a daunting task, like trying to pick, who's going to be which character?
Picking the character part is not hard. I mean, there's so much wonderful talent out there. I mean, it could be a full-time job, just listening to different narrators and deciding like, ooh, wow, who would that, would that be a good person for this particular character? I'm lucky that through the years, I've connected with some narrators that are become like friends. And so I worked with some of them over and over again. And that is just makes a really wonderful relationship that I trust them. We work really well together. I love the sound of their voice. Most actors really have a wide range. So where I might have like a particular character that I think, this would be a good match. Oftentimes it's more like who's available. I mean, a lot of narrators are so booked up now. Who's available? Who can fit into the schedule that I have built? Who can work well with the other narrator? Because some narrators don't, they're union, so they only work with, union other narrators or etc. So it's probably less complicated than you might think. But I'm also lucky because I do have kind of like a roster, maybe half
Mhm.
a dozen narrators that I've worked with and who are just a joy to work with, and I so appreciate their talent. So I tend to work with them, over and over again. Like with Rob and Laura, we worked for 3 books together because I really wanted to have three in a row with them narrating, so that if I create a box set, that is a listening experience that feels really continuous.
Yeah.
So that was intentional on my part to do it that way.
Yeah, I think they're both phenomenal. I love both their voices, and I've heard them on other books too. And each time I hear them, they just bring a new layer to whatever character they're reading. Like they're really very multifaceted, dynamic in that way with the way that they can deliver the text. So yeah, they're
Yeah. Yeah, when I get the first audio files, I squeal. Like it's like the most amazing feeling to have
yeah,
your story and have them it gone through someone else's creative process and they're expressing themselves. Your words, it's pretty mind blowing.
yeah, that's really, really, really cool. So this one kind of is a fun question. And this will be like focused around your female main characters. So out of all of your female main characters, who would you have as your best friend, roommate, and then who would you take on a road trip?
All one person or with
Different
different
people. You
people?
can pick 3 different people. So one would
Oh,
be
three
the
different
roommate,
people.
one would be the best friend, one would be the road trip.
Wow, those are really great questions. My bestie, I don't know, might be Sophie from Love Be Dangerous or Ava. They're both just such solid friends. They're honest and they're okay to be vulnerable and like share when something's really, under the surface. Ava is the physician and I was a scientist before I was a writer. So I respect like having somebody who's has an intelligent way to like, work through problems. That's why I would pick them. I mean, I love Sophie so much because she's so brave and she's a caregiver. She really is the glue in her family. She gave up her college dreams to stay home and raise her younger sister when their mom took off. And that's something that is really close to my heart just because I'm a mom and I would do anything for my kids. So those two probably would, I don't know, both of them would be great
Yeah,
roommates.
that's fine.
And let's see, for road trip, I would take Kirley St. Clair, our heroine from book 2, because she's super wealthy, so she would fit the bill. She's also super like playful and fun and curious and just so positive to be around. Like even her circumstances were pretty dismal in that story. She had parents who didn't really care about her dreams, didn't believe in her, were forcing her to marry somebody that she didn't love. And even despite all that, she's just still full of positivity and generosity. And I just so valued her in that story for just bringing that vibe to the story. It was really fun. And road trip. Oh, then we need roommate. Is
Roommate,
that what we have
roommate.
left? Roommate. I don't know. That's a good one. Well, I know. It'd be Annika from my Falling Hard series. She's the star of Falling for My Best Friend. And she is one of those sort of family girls like that I really love spending time with. It really puts her family first. She owns a bakery and it's modeled after a bakery that I've spent a lot of time in. It's called the Stanley Bakery. It's in Stanley, Idaho. And it's called the Growly Bear Bakery. And she also loves taking care of her people and her best friend, Grady. They obviously have all these feelings for each other, and her older brother is his best friend, so they have that kind of forbidden little, conflict between them. But she is such a caregiver and really puts other people first. Really makes her happy and makes her feel like really fulfilled and joyful when she's able to care for others. So that she would make a great roommate. She'd maybe take care of me at the end of a long day.
I'm excited to read that one. I feel like I love brother's best friend and best friends to lovers. Like I love that trope. I think that's a great trope to read. It's one of my favorite.
Friends to Lovers is my absolute favorite to write, and it's probably the one that I write the best. And I might be my first love was my best friend. Maybe that's like it sowed some seeds in my soul.
Yeah.
But Friends to Lovers is definitely, if I had to write one trope over and over again, that would be the one I would pick.
All right. Well, what, if you had to pick one, like, do you like reading? Is it that same one, or is there another one that you really like to read?
I don't read a lot of stuff that's directly in my niche genre. I
Hmm.
tend to read more suspense, maybe romance. I do like small town because I love writing. I love writing them. But reading, I try to broaden my scope. I probably read more mysteries and police procedurals than I do small town romance.
Hmm.
Friends to Lovers, I don't know, it's so dear to me that I don't often read it. I think I preserve all of my energy for when I'm writing it. I
Yeah.
also have to be careful, like reading a lot of stuff that seems really tight in my genre. I just don't want to be affected by other people's writing. There's lots of great inspiration out there, so I'm really careful about um like I wouldn't accidentally want to like bring someone else's storyline into what I'm writing. So I try to keep it kind of have like a little bit of a line that I don't cross when it comes
Yeah.
to reading. And yeah, like there's just great. Like I read a small town romance that was set in like Kentucky, which was just so different, like the vibe and everything about it. There's a lot of horses and horse racing, and I do stuff with horses, but it's really very different. Mountains
Yeah.
of Idaho, it's got a different vibe. So yeah, in terms of reading, I don't read as much in my like in the small niche area that I write in.
So you mentioned you read mysteries. Have you ever read the Thursday Murder Mystery Club?
I think I have the first book of that on my TBR, but I haven't read it yet. I've heard it's very good. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
I think there's 5 books. They're great.
Yeah.
I love it because it's like this old retirement home, and they're like the retired people, and they're like solving murder mysteries. So, and it's from the UK, so it's got like drier humor.
Yeah.
But that one's really good if you like that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed those.
Yeah. Definitely. It's on my list.
So, what's your writing process? Are you a pantser or are you a plotter?
I do probably more pantsing, but I always start out with a pretty detailed character sketch for each character. I have like a kind of like a workshop that I do to I pull out some pictures, I kind of make like a not a mood board, but I get inspiration of like what the characters look like to me in terms of age and hair color, things like that. And then I have a pretty detailed list of things that I cover, like what's their favorite drink, what's their most embarrassing moment, what do they like to read, what makes them happy, what do they think they're good at, how do they feel about the world, so they understand more about who they are. So I do a lot of that. That takes me several days per character to probably really build all that out, and then I have to figure out like why they can't be together, like what is the conflict. It could be like a forbidden thing, like they're best friends and they don't want to break their friendship. It could be a second chance, they've been broken from before, they don't want to risk it again. So I have to kind of know what the conflict is, and then the stakes, like what's the big thing that they can't, like that can't happen. It's like I can't get my heart broken again, or maybe it's death, like there's murder. And
Yeah.
if I don't solve this mystery, then someone else is going to die. Like what are the stakes that are involved in the story? So once I have a release, like if that's in my bones, then I feel like I can start writing. And then of course the meet cute, like I kind of have to know, like how do they know each other, or how do they meet. I have to imagine that in my head before I can start writing. And so I kind of sketch out the first, the meet cute, the first couple of chapters that kind of gets us into the like where they're going to spend time together, whatever that is. And then I usually just sort of start writing, and it's very fly by seat of my pants
Yeah.
from that point.
Once you create the characters and you have them like fully, 3 dimensional in your mind, are they very loud with their like bringing the story to you, or do you kind of have to like guide them?
It depends. Like when I wrote Love Me Reckless, which is book 2 in the series, I actually wasn't going to write that book until later, but when I was finishing book 1, Sawyer, the hero, he just would not shut up. He was in my head all the time, and I had scene ideas, I had witty things he said clearly, I had like these moments where they were forced to be together and this conflict that they were fighting, and it would not leave me alone. And so I had to write their book next because it was literally going to drive me crazy, because I was going to write Ava and Hutch's book as book 2, and then I switched them, and I'm glad I did, because that story, it just, I don't know, it just was so much that just pushed to the surface, and I hadn't even really thought about that story very much because I've been working so hard on Love Me Dangerous. So in that case, yeah, they were very loud. Um, The book I'm working on right now, which is book 5, which is coming out probably in the summertime, they're just starting to talk to me, and I'm on chapter 4 right now. So I think it depends. I mean, Ava and Hutch were definitely loud because I had kind of suppressed their story. I'd been thinking about their book since probably February, like before I was started to write Love Me Dangerous. And I knew exactly what their story was going to look like. It was so clear in my head, but I really had to put it aside. So they definitely were talking to me too.
Like, hey, what about us?
Yep. They were not happy that I made them wait, but it was worth it because then I was able to build the suspense part of that story, the stalker piece.
Yeah.
I was able to build in a little bit more about that from book 2. So that was really fun.
Yeah. So how are you with working with those types of things that are triggers? Because you have some heavy things in your book, some heavy topics. Was that difficult? Was it cathartic? Did you struggle at all with that process?
Depends on the story. So are we talking just about Love Me Fearless?
Yeah, we could talk about that one.
Okay. Did I struggle with? No. I mean, I really like having depth, different depths to the characters that I build. Ava had this experience, with this, I don't want to spoil it, so I have to be careful. That Ava had this experience with this person in her past. I've just made it not really heavy. Like I made it it was like almost like a blip. Like it comes by and goes pretty fast. I didn't want to dwell on the experience that she had until it was in the moment and she was sharing it with Hutch. Because that for me was more powerful anyway.
Yeah.
And I do try, like even at the end of that book when there's a situation where Ava's in danger, I try to create the atmosphere of that, like you said, the hairs on the back of your neck. That makes me so happy to hear, by the way, where it's definitely a creepy, scary place, but in terms of actual things that happen to her, it's very slight. Like it's really more the threat and the feeling of this could be really bad. And then,
The mental
yeah,
part of it.
yes. And then I kind of rolled into the fix pretty quickly. And that part is definitely intentional. I really want it to be more about suspense than harm being done to characters. That's not something that I want to spend a lot of time in. I mean, it's a small town romance. If I was writing something really dark, maybe it would be different. But a lot of hope and growth in my stories. And so I wanted to focus more on that and the relationship and like sacrifices that the characters make for each other versus like really having someone in like mortal peril.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I liked it. I liked how you did it. It definitely
Thank
played
you.
out in my mind like a movie. Listening to
Thanks.
them say it. It
That's
did.
amazing.
Yeah. So has there been any types of either tropes or like stories that you have wanted to write that you haven't yet?
That's a really good question. I'm so deep in the Love Me Dangerous series right now. I haven't thought a lot about, I mean, I do like, I don't do like a lot of workplace romances, but that could be really fun. Coming up with ways where if you can create a setting where the characters are forced to be together without me having to force them together, like the book I'm writing right now, like I'm designing a situation where they are forced to be together, and that's fun too. But when you already have it built in, then you can maybe focus on some of the other things that you're trying to express in your story. So I don't know, maybe I would I would design a workplace romance would be kind of fun. I don't know. I lived in Sicily for 3 years, and so I specifically will never write a mafia romance because I have seen how the mafia operates, and it's just not something that I can get creative about. It's very brutal in real life and very ugly. I think people who write that stuff do an amazing job, and it's probably extremely fun, and it's fun for readers to be in that world. But me personally, it's just not something that I will ever be able to play with in a creative way. So that's like a no for me.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know what trope I would like to write. I don't know. I I probably will want to write another family romance again, like I did with Falling Hard, and have there be maybe the suspense would be there too, and I would try a combination of that because this series right now there are some family elements, but it's mostly like kind of found family. So maybe I would take another big family like I did with Falling Hard and add suspense. That could be fun, but I don't know.
Yeah. That's cool. I like the workplace romance one. I love those. I think they're good because it's like they're already there, and so then you have to like they're like, no, we shouldn't. Yes, we should. No, we shouldn't. It's like that whole like back and forth tension thing.
Yeah.
So
Like I love it when you have like a hookup or a one night stand, two people who are strangers, and then ta-da, like the next
we work
day,
together.
she walks into her new job, or he returns home to the whatever, and now he's the boss, she's the boss. Like they're all of a sudden have to face off with each other. I think that's really fun. And I think I've done something like that. Not quite as much of a workplace situation, but I have definitely done the one night stand and later like, uh-oh, I thought I was never going to see you again, and here you are. I probably would like to write. I can see myself writing another one like that, maybe with more of a workplace setup. That I haven't done that before. So yeah, that could be one.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that. So let me go down here. How do you celebrate your milestones in your writing career?
When I finish the first draft of a book, I buy myself flowers. I usually buy roses, and I do that with every book. And then I usually buy roses again when the book is done. Like it's been through the editing, it's proofed, I've formatted it, it's ready to go. And I've also, the last thing I do is I write the acknowledgments. That's when I know the book is really done. So when that's done, by then that's probably been a month since I finished the first
Mm-hmm.
draft. So I buy myself flowers again. When I publish a book, I've gotten better about this. I used to just work, 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 work. But now I really try to, I take the day, like the morning, I'll usually have a lot of people who are doing some sharing for me on social media.
Mm-hmm.
They're sharing the release, they're sharing a clip of the audio. They're doing these really lovely favors for me. So I'll spend the morning being online and thanking people and, reposting things and just sort of generally soaking in the buzz because it's something that's so special. I don't know any other creative industry that does something like we do on social media that really puts all this big effort and all these wonderful people, volunteer their time and talents to share what you've done. Like it usually makes me cry. I've actually left several tearful messages on some of these, bookstagrammers um, posts because it's just so it's such a it like makes you feel like royalty. So what I do is I spend the morning just engaging and being around and thanking people and reposting, and then I tend to take the afternoon and go outside. I like to mountain bike, I like to run and hike and do other stuff outside. So I take the afternoon and maybe go for a bike ride, a mountain bike ride, or a walk or someplace and just really try to soothe my frazzled soul and reconnect with being outside. And then the day after, I try to take the day off and do something with my husband, or if it's a day where my kids are home, do something with my kids. Be buy like something yummy that I might want to have for lunch, or maybe go out to lunch with my husband. Try to just take the day and just sort of just enjoy the sort of the feeling of it being complete and it's now out in the world, and just kind of recharge a little bit.
So you mentioned earlier that you had a career before writing. So what sparked this journey to begin writing?
Well, I always was a writer. I just didn't really know it. I used to write little stories for like my parents' dinner party guests when they would come over. I write these silly stories about a cat. And when I was in high school, I was on the newspaper, and I was an editor for the newspaper. Writing was just always fun for me, and I never realized that that's not normal. That people often find writing really hard and painful and they don't like it, and I don't know, it was always fun for me, and I loved reading. I was always a voracious reader as a kid and all throughout my life. And so I went to college and I became a scientist. I was a geologist, actually, and what I loved about writing, or I loved about science, is expressing. It was telling a story. Now often in science you do a lot of research and you tell the story through the data and things like that, but you're telling a story. You're using factual evidence to support that story. That was the part that I loved. I loved revealing something, offering something, a new perspective, even entertaining, because often the writing itself can be entertaining in a way. And so I think I was always a writer. I just didn't put it together that was what I was meant to do until I was a teacher. After college, I worked as an outdoor education teacher. I worked for a company called Knowles, where we take kids out in the wilderness and we teach them all kinds of skills and do have these really great adventures. And I loved it, but I knew that I couldn't do that forever. And so when I left that job, I was a teacher for a while. And again, what I loved was the writing. helping kids write. I loved helping them form their ideas. I loved helping them critique, like, what the story they wanted to tell. And I was a science teacher, and we were still doing a lot of storytelling. So it just was a matter of time before I really decided to engage in what I was always meant to do, which was to write books, write novels.
I love that. So, do you have a moment that you can recall during this journey that you felt really,
As a writer or with a series?
just either way, as a writer or a series, or just a moment that's really stood out to you?
I mean, seeing your book in a bookstore for the first time, I mean, like squealing and jumping up and down, it's a big deal. My first signing that I did, I published, really, it was a local bookstore. And because I'm an independent publisher, I kind of had to like beg them to let me come. And I had invited some of my friends and family for sure. Walking in and seeing, there was probably like 30 people, which I mean is a lot of people to be speaking in front of and sharing something that you created. So that moment was pretty amazing. These people took time out of their evening to come and listen to me talk about, this book that I had written and ask questions and be engaged. It's like winning the lottery. I mean, it's really an amazing experience to be able to share what you've created with people who are eager to hear it. So yeah.
Yeah, that'd probably be a really amazing feeling to see it on the shelves and having some stranger buy it and or meet you and then you telling them about the book, and that's probably really cool.
Like I remember the first signing that, and so somebody would, they bring the book, hey, will you sign the book? And I'm so nervous. I was like, I can't talk to them and write because I'd mess up their name in the book. I mean, it's just I had a lot of like cooling, soothing breaths to like, okay, it's still just me. There's still just a person, and it's gonna be okay. But it was super meaningful. So yeah.
So does writing energize you or does it make you tired?
I'm one of those people who will work longer than anybody else on the planet. So I don't really get tired. I mean, I certainly can get exhausted if I have like a big deadline and I'm working a lot of hours, but I don't know, I probably do get energized. I definitely work longer than most people though. I mean, I have a family and I do help my family's business. I do some writing for them to kind of help them out. So I do have to balance some of the other like parts of my life and my day, but it definitely doesn't make me tired.
Yeah. Is there anything that's like a kryptonite for you that can like derail you when you're in the midst of writing?
Noises, like my neighbor's leaf blower or like hammering, or like we have a lot of older people that live around us and they are obsessed with their lawn care and it's awesome for them, but um I have had to get creative with like sound noises and ways to drown them out because it can be very derailing.
Yeah. Do you listen to like music or have like sounds in your own space that you've put on to help with it?
Yeah, I'll play like rain sounds, and I'll turn it up loud enough that it just sort of muffles some of the outside sounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I can think that would probably be hard if you're like in a scene and then you're like hearing this over here and you're like, I'm trying to stay in this scene and I keep hearing this other noise. That would be
Mhm.
hard. So if you could go into a time machine and go back to your younger writing self, would there be anything that you would tell yourself as advice, knowing what you know now?
I probably would tell myself to start writing sooner. And that's the advice I tell other people who want to start writing. It's scary to start. And I was, nervous. You don't really know what you're doing. And there's the fear of rejection and, the pressure of having it to, it has to be perfect. But I would just tell myself to just get going. Just let the stories roll. And it took me like 4 years to write my first book because I was just so, I wanted to have it be perfect. And it turns out that even all that time, it wasn't perfect. I certainly learned a lot and I wouldn't change it for anything. But I think the more you write, the better your craft gets. So just start and keep going and you'll get better, and your stories will come out better.
Do you have like a goal during the day of like a word count or like chapters that you aim for?
I've started doing 1,000 word per week is kind of my goal. I don't like to do it per day because my day can vary quite a bit. I can definitely crank out, 2 or 3,000 words in a day if I have to, but that's usually a lot for me because I'm a pantser, so I don't always have a plan. So I will try to get in. That's, between 1,500 and 2,000 words a day would be a great day. Some days I only get 700 because I'm doing other things like marketing stuff, making graphics, things like that. So 10,000 words a week is a good. I'm able to stick to that. And even like if I had to take a day off or something, I would still be able to finish that many words per week. And then I can plan, for like the editing cycle and all the other stuff that has to happen. So yeah.
Do you ever come across having like writer's block?
I'm really good about writer's block doesn't really happen to me, but I can get down the road if it's the wrong conflict. And that's kind of like writer's block. Writer's block is usually either that you're working on the wrong conflict or there's not enough conflict. And so if I ever get stuck, then I can pull back and go, okay, it's A or B. And if when I identify what it is, then I can fix it and I can get going. I did have a problem with this last book, that's the one that's coming out at the end of March, where I had one of the conflicts. It just wasn't working for me, but I kept pushing, thinking, oh, I just need to keep going. It'll work itself out. I have all these really great other conflicts and things will just mesh. And they did not. And I had to go back and fix a lot of words that were not delivering on that central conflict that was kind of what I wanted. And that was a first for me. That's never happened to me before. Usually I'm like, okay, I kind of just set the wheels in motion and then off we go. And this time that did not work. So that was an interesting challenge to have to deal with, but it was good. In the end, I think the book ended up becoming much better because of it. So it worked out.
That's great. So what is the most difficult types of scenes for you to write?
It probably depends on the mood. Like, oftentimes I'm just not in the mood for the hot scene. Like the intimacy piece, like it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it's sunny and it's supposed to be nighttime and like all sultry and romantic. But sometimes it's just like that particular scene at that time of day or that situation just isn't working for me. Other times it's descriptive, scenic. Like I really love being able to create the picture of we are in the mountains and how beautiful it is and peaceful. But that takes a lot of attention to detail. And sometimes I'm like, no, I really want to get to the spicy scene. Like, I'm not in the mood for this. So it kind of just depends on what's happening. Because I try to write sequentially. I tend not to skip scenes. I do every now and then just because it's inevitable, especially towards the end of the book. When I like the suspense piece is really flying, it's coming together, and I just don't want to stop working on that. I'll get that all out and I'll go back and insert the, intimacy scene or the descriptive passage that I, kind of skipped or did a like kind of just like a placeholder scene with, and I go and fill those in later. But yeah, that can be tough to try to like be sequential when really the mood is not striking for that particular type of scene.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So then on the flip side, what is the most easier or easiest scenes for you to write?
I don't think there are any that are easy. No, there are no easy. Every now and then, like say with Sawyer and Kierley in book 2, they just, like I said, they were in my head and they had just their banter and their circumstances were so like just delicious that it was really fun to write the scenes where they were bantering. Like there's a hot tub situation and I end up calling it hot tub wish list because they end up in a hot tub together and he's just really pushing her buttons and challenging her. And that was so fun to have them kind of like engage in this way because they're just such opposites. And it's so that like was easy because it was already in my head. But that's pretty rare. There's not a lot of easy when it comes to writing. I wish there was.
Yeah. So what is the most interesting or like profound thing you've learned being a writer, like on your journey, like something that's really been like, whoa, for you?
The most fun is the intuitive like burst of creativity and the surprises that happen. I'll have an idea of what the story is going to be about. Some of the main key point scenes I kind of are like little waypoints on the journey. And I usually have an idea what those are. Like I'll get an idea for a scene. I'm like, oh, that's really good. Like there's one right now. I'm like, they have to go tree planting. I'm not sure why, but they're going to need to go tree planting together, and that's going to do something special. So I'll have like these ideas where that's going to happen. But then when I'm writing, there will be some creative little like thing that comes up out of nowhere. And it's like the perfect little twist or a perfect little memory that a character just has that comes in the right moment. And so those little, like trusting that those are going to happen and trusting that that's the right thing to do. At first I was so scared, because you're like, it has to be a certain way and I have this plan and it has to go the way I've planned it. But the more I've been able to write, excuse me, the more I've been able to write, the more that creative process just becomes more automatic, and like trusting it and learning to lean into it has been probably the best gift I can think of. And it's also it's bled into my other parts of my life. Parenting. Like parenting is really hard, and there's like twists and turns that you're like, I was not prepared for this, but there's always an answer. It comes up, it's there. And so
Yeah.
I've learned to like trust that sort of intuition in other areas of my life, and it's been really wonderful. So I would attribute it to writing.
Awesome. That's awesome. So what is the most difficult thing for you about writing from the POV of like the opposite sex? Is it hard? Is it easy?
I love being in the male POV. I grew up with a lot of boys. I was a tomboy. I have a younger brother. Like I said, my best friend became my first love. I was just like an athlete, and I spent a lot of time with guys. In the outdoor education job that I worked, I was always the only female instructor. So I spent a lot of time talking to guys, listening to guys, knowing what they're into, what makes them think. Plus, my brother and I are very close. My dad and I are very close. So I love being in the guy's POV. It's probably more fun for me than the female, although certain females I really do love. Like I really loved Ava. Being in her POV was really so fun. And some of the other characters I've had in other series too. But the guys, just how much sexual energy they have is so fun. I think women, certainly we have those tendencies too, but we're doing so many different things. We're wearing the mom hat, the spouse hat, the what's for dinner hat, all the things. And men are so much more geared for that. Just all the time they're thinking about sex, and it's
Yeah.
just fun. It's fun to
Yeah.
be in that role.
So it gets you out of your own like laundry list of things. Like you can take a break.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Which character is most like you and why?
That's so hard. I really cannot answer which one. There's a little piece of me in all of them. Gosh. Let me think for a second. I don't know. I probably put a lot of myself into Lori, who is the female lead for the first two books in the Falling Hard series, Falling for My Fling and Falling for My Second Chance. It's a duet. She's kind of a science nerd, and she's had like some body shaming issues from her mom growing up, and that's something that happened to me as a kid. And she kind of became the voice for some of those struggles that I'd had. And it was so fun to create kind of that like really deep longing that she had to be accepted, and have Caleb, my guy, who's just so fun. He's just like this playboy raft guy, just like cocky as hell, and just, thinks he walks on water, and have him be the one to give her that sense of belonging, like that, the two of them together, and how she really pulled his like a mature development, like a growth in him. It was so beautiful. So that's probably the one I would pick, even though in that story she's so young. Like Lori's probably like, I think she's maybe 21 or 20, so it would be like my very, very younger self, and kind of unsure of herself in a way, and then discovers so much about herself and about the family that she kind of becomes part of. So I probably would pick her.
That one. So what do you feel, in your opinion, makes a great story?
Great conflict. Has to have great conflict, and it has to be sustainable conflict. I want to know, like, I want to imagine these people really can't be together. Like, I have to believe that. Like, the reasons for them not being together have to be really powerful. And then it's so fun to watch that conviction just like crumble away as whatever it is that brings them together. But the conflict really has to be strong. And books that don't have conflict, I end up not finishing. It's just something that's what drives a story, is the conflict. And you gotta have a good one.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So have you enjoyed the process of creating the covers, working with the artist and bringing that to fruition, or is that like a daunting task for you?
I have a great cover designer. She's been with me since my very first book. I was lucky I found her. I was doing research for a cover of a different series, and I saw this cover and I was like, that is so awesome. So I looked in the cover inside of it, like the look inside feature, and I found her name and I looked her up, and she was taking clients, and I was like, great. So she designed my very first cover, which was Hunter and Petra's book in the Wild Heart series. Her Wild Coast here Outlaw is the one. And we've been together ever since, and I have never dreamed about working with anybody else. She was also a romance writer before she became a designer. So she understands a lot about like what we're trying to convey on the cover. She's really easy to work with, really fun. I wouldn't say it's daunting. I mean, it's always like you feel a little bit of pressure, like, if this cover doesn't say the right thing, then, people aren't going to like the book or give the book a chance. But I don't know. I think she does a great job. So I feel really confident in, what she's going to produce for the upcoming books. So yeah.
Great. No, she does a great job. I love the covers. I love the look of the
Thank you.
characters on the front and the vibes it sets up for the story.
Thank you. Yeah, she's not a mountain person. So that's one thing where I'm always like Lara, no, like, that's not Idaho. Like it'll be some scenic background that's like obviously not, that would not be Idaho.
Yeah.
Like the Dolomites in Italy, they're beautiful, but it's very different.
Yeah, it's very
So
different.
I'll have to coach her a little bit sometimes. Like I'll make like a mood board, or I'll put together like a collection of photos that I, can pull off of like Shutterstock or whatever, make her a file, and then she's got like some inspiration to go from there. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing where I sometimes have to fine tune,
Yeah.
because she's in England and I don't think she's a mountain person like I am. So,
So, what is something unique or quirky that we maybe don't know about you?
hmm. Um, Well, I mean, some people don't know that I really am a mountain person, that I'm a mountain climber, that I love the outdoors. I've spent a lot of time under the stars. I've spent many summers working in the outdoors. I was a geologist, so I have like a very deep appreciation for natural landscapes, and it's like part of my soul.
Yeah.
I really crave time in the mountains, up in the high alpine. I'm a very skilled outdoors person. Like I could probably live outside for a very long time. Certainly, I need to get food, but in terms of like, I'm very comfortable being outside in all types of weather and climates, and that's something that I'm very. It's just it's a piece of me for sure.
Awesome. That's really great. So, my last question for you is, what message do you want readers to take away from after finishing your book?
I think a lot of what I try to build into my characters is a lot like what we talked about before, which is like trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, trusting your heart. A lot of times we spend energy pleasing others, or doing certain things we think we need to do or have to do, or being a certain way because people tell us we have to, or to please others, or to reach maybe a goal that we don't maybe fully understand, instead of really listening to like the intuition and the true parts of ourselves that are really trying to be heard. And sometimes in my stories, I try to almost like the two characters grow together in that way, where they help each other find that trust in themselves and lean into that trust. So maybe that, I mean, that would be like an amazing message if readers could take away that, like, maybe it's okay to listen to that voice, or maybe nurturing that voice, is a good idea, or that could bring joy to my life. But of course, I want them to think that love conquers all. Every romance author, I think, would want us to believe that love is worth the ride, it's worth the struggle, because it truly is.
I do. I think that you bring that to the table with your book, so I love that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a great chat with you and getting to know you more, and all the different things like with Flagstaff and the things that we kind of have in common, and then just the journey that you've taken. That's just an incredible journey. And I love hearing, about how you got to really have that experience of your book in a bookstore, because even some of the authors that I've talked to, they haven't gotten there yet. So it's really awesome that you've had that opportunity and got to experience that.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you. I feel like royalty. It's so nice to be able to chat. Thank you for your time and for sharing. I really appreciate it.
So her next release, like I said, comes out March 27th, Love Me Fierce. And be sure to like and subscribe. And I also linked her information below, so you can find her on Instagram along with her website, where you can grab the other books in the series so you can binge read before March comes out, so you'll be caught up on the series. Please share this with a book bestie who loves romantic suspense. She definitely writes a very intriguing and captivating tale, so I highly recommend her. And join me next time as we get another look behind the book.
Thank you so much.